we're going to give a big cheer, a big round of applause, a big welcome to Zanib, Mian, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I was kind of hiding behind there, listening to everything. And when Aaron asked, has anybody read Planet Omar, I really wanted to know the answer to that. So have you read Planet Omar?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, because that helps me talk to you. Should I talk to you as if you've never read it and I can tell you all about it? Or should I talk to you as if you've read it and I can tell you more about it? But I'll do something in the middle. So yeah, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for joining me for this Planet Omar event. I am Zanib Mian. I'm the author of the Planet Omar series of books. And it's so lovely for me to be here in Luton. Every audience is different, and I couldn't wait to see what you guys are going to be like. And now that I'm here, I can see a gorgeous room. You know that there's a light shining in my eyes, so I have to go like this. I can see a gorgeous room full of wonderful, there's big ones as well, but obviously wonderful little dragons and unicorns. Oh, there's a goblin or two in there as well. And there's a really big dragon, which is growing. It's growing so big, it's there at the back. And, oh, watch out, the tail is going to hit you on the head there. Just obviously, you know, well, just check. You're not really dragons and unicorns, are you? No. So what was I doing there? I was using my imagination. And why was I using my imagination? Because...
You're an author?
Yes, because I'm an author, and because the main character in my books, Omar, has a huge imagination. So you see what I did there? I was using my imagination while I had my eyes open, while I was in a situation where I was getting on with other things, which was talking to you, but I was still using my imagination at the same time. And Omar does that a lot. His imagination pops up just everywhere. And he also uses it when he's feeling a little bit anxious, but I'll tell you more about that later. This is me when I was about the same age as some of you. I've got a tooth missing, so maybe a little bit younger, I don't know. But yes, and I've got this picture here because I wanted to tell you that it was at this age, the same age as some of you, that I absolutely fell in love with reading, with books. And much of that magic happened at a library, my local library. And that's because whenever we had school holidays, my mum would take me to the library, and we were only allowed to choose 8 books, which was very, very difficult because there were so many books to choose from. And I loved the look of like all of them, but it was really hard and I had to choose 8. And then I really loved the bit when my kids say I'm from the olden days, but it was the librarian had to actually stamp the book in those days instead of it being like a whole like digital thing. So I used to love watching the librarian do that. And then I would go home and I would finish those 8 books. I'm talking about not Planet Omar kind of books, so maybe, yeah, a little bit younger, maybe a bit less than Planet Omar or even picture books. And I would finish them all in one day, in the same day, and I would ask my mum to take me back. So I absolutely loved books and stories, and that's when I fell in love with stories, and I also fell in love with writing, because when you're reading lots of stories, you start developing your own stories in your mind and your own characters, and it started happening back then. And I like to share that with you guys because I want you to know that maybe there's some magic happening in you right now, where when you're reading your stories and you're writing at school or at home, you know, there's something developing in there that I might get to read when you grow up. So I grew up, here I am, and I actually didn't become an author at first. I became a teacher. So when I went to high school, although I loved reading and writing in primary school so much, it was my greatest love. When I went to high school, my greatest love changed a little bit, and it became science. So I kind of forgot about my love for writing in high school. I loved science so much, I went to university and I studied science, and then I became a science teacher. And it wasn't really until I had kids of my own, and I was looking at the books, I was buying books for them, since they were like babies. And I realized that things hadn't changed. And I had a memory actually that came back to me maybe at that time, which I hadn't even thought of, or it hadn't even clicked to me. It hadn't clicked in my head when I was a child, but when I grew up and I had kids of my own and I saw the books that were on the shelves, in the libraries, in the bookshops, I realized there weren't enough books that featured all kinds of people. Because there's so many kinds of people in the world, and it's brilliant. I love it. Obviously, I studied genetics as well at university, and I just love the way it all plays out. And there's just so many kinds of people in the world. And I felt that when I was in school, and I was a little girl in school, whenever the teacher asked me to make up a story, I would try and think of names that were not from my own culture. I would never tell my story. So I would always think of like a John or a Richard or a Tracy or something. And even when my teacher asked me to colour in a picture that was supposed to be in a book, that was supposed to be of me, I didn't colour it in brown. And she told me it was all wrong. And I remember being heartbroken about that, but I didn't understand why it was wrong, because I thought everybody in the stories and TV and everything, they're never brown. So that was a memory that came back to me when I was buying books for my kids. And I realized that there still weren't enough books that had people like everybody, and I wanted to write those kinds of books. And so when I first started writing, I wrote picture books, and I was trying to feature all kinds of people. This is a book called Odd-Sockosaurus. It was featured on CBeebies Bedtime Stories. You can still catch it on their YouTube channel. It's one of my earliest publications. The Robot That Said Moo is another one. And it wasn't until quite a few years into my writing career that I actually wrote Planet Omar. And I'm so glad I did, because now I'm here today speaking to you about it. So, I got from before that many of you have read Planet Omar, but some of you haven't, so I'll tell you about Planet Omar. Planet Omar is a series of books for children, sometimes maybe as young as 6, depending on whether they like to read. But yeah, from maybe 7 to 10 years old. It all depends on how, the kinds of books that you like to read. When I was in primary school, and the teacher kept telling me, you have to go on to chapter books, you have to go on to the more books for older children. I didn't want to. I wanted to read picture books for a lot longer. But yeah, so now there's 5 books in the Planet Omar series, and I'll tell you a little bit about them, about each one, and about the newest one, which is called Planet Omar Ultimate Rocket Blast, that turquoise one that you can see there. It's a series of middle grade books with lots and lots of illustrations, and it features a Muslim family like mine. There was also a World Book Day one. It features a Muslim family like mine, and the main character, whose name is Omar. And it's about all the muddles that he gets into, how he approaches different situations in life, how he goes through his different adventures, using his kindness and wit and imagination, obviously. He can be a little bit cheeky. He can be a bit of an accidental trouble magnet, as you know. But at the end of the day, Omar is a very warm and loving person, and he always ends up doing the right thing, even if he's kind of gone off track and done a little bit of the wrong thing at first. So yeah, that's why I was using my imagination in the beginning, because I wanted to show you exactly how big Omar's imagination is. So I actually did see that dragon that I was saying, the really big one that was growing. I actually did see it in my imagination. And isn't that fun? That's so fun, isn't it? Yeah. Did some of you see dragons when I was doing that? Were you imagining it as well? Yeah. Were you imagining yourselves as dragons? Yeah. So you can see how fun it actually is to do that. And Omar does it a lot. And when we were doing that, were we thinking about maybe our tummies hurting, or we shouldn't have had that much chocolate yesterday, or we've got too much homework that we have to get on with? Were we thinking those things? No, we weren't feeling anxious about anything else in that moment. And that's exactly why Omar uses his imagination when he is in a situation where he's feeling anxious and worried, and he especially imagines his dragon, called H2O, in those situations. So it says on there that, I've got my phone here to keep my eye on the time, it says on there that Omar hates marshmallows. And I'm really sorry about that, because I think lots of you will disagree. Who hates marshmallows in here? Only a few of us. Yeah, I'm sorry to offend you guys. Thank you for some of you for agreeing. So I gave Omar that characteristic because I don't like marshmallows and I don't understand why everybody else does. No, I'm kidding, I understand. But I don't like them and I feel like they're squidgy and not very nice in my mouth. So I gave Omar that characteristic. For the rest of the characters in the book, I also took characteristics from people that I know in real life. Sometimes it might be people I met for 5 minutes in the supermarket. Sometimes it might even be somebody I didn't even talk to, but I was just watching them while I was in a cafe. Sorry, I'm a bit nosy. Or in a supermarket line, which is very long and boring. And I do my shopping really fast, and then sometimes the queue is longer than the actual time it takes to do the shopping. So I have to entertain myself while I look at people. So yeah, I take inspiration for my characters from people in my lives, and I'm telling you that because when you're making up your stories, the first thing you have to do is make your characters excellent. And that means they have to be really, really interesting. They have to have layers of personality. They have to have something different about them. They have to have things that people can relate to. So on this, Omar's mum wears a scarf, like me. Lots of people in this room can relate to that. And she likes coffee. Lots of people can relate to that. By the way, can we just acknowledge how hard it is for me to wear a white top and keep it white? Because I love coffee. Again, something else I gave the mum a characteristic, coffee. And when I eat and drink, I do tend to spill stuff on myself. So just who else does that? Sometimes when you eat and drink, do you get some on your top? Exactly. So, and for somebody who loves coffee, and for somebody who loves driving, and for somebody who likes driving fast, it's not a good combination. Ribena, can't do it. Not with a white top on. Omar's dad rides a motorbike. He's really cool, and he's a scientist. Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you, the mum is a scientist. The mum is a scientist, and the dad is a scientist, and that means that in Omar's house on Sunday, they have something really special called Science Sundays. Yeah, where they do lots of fun experiments, where they make tornadoes in bottles or fizzy slime. Lots of science fun, because science is fun. And actually, in the newest Planet Omar book, Planet Omar Ultimate Rocket Blast, which we're going to talk more about today, there's a lot of science in that, because it's rocket science, literally. I took a lot of Omar's characteristics from my brother, because my brother is a scientist, and he's actually a rocket scientist, so that helped a lot when I was writing the book, even though he doesn't make rockets right now. He's gone into IT. Yeah, he writes, software and things. And my brother has a beard and all of that, and he rides a motorbike. So I kind of took a lot of the elements from my brother for Dad's personality. But when you're reading the book, he's not exactly like Dad. Oh gosh, hands up if you've got an older sibling. They might even be with you here today. Oh, it might be actually, because you've come as a family. You know, if you haven't got a sibling, a brother or a sister, you might have a cousin or something, an older one. And this is a bit awkward, because I was going to ask you if sometimes your older sibling is annoying, but now you have to say it in front of them. So, okay, is your older sibling annoying? Wink once for yes. Yeah, mine can be, definitely, sometimes. And Omar thinks the same about his sister, who's 13, but thinks she's 16. That means she thinks she's older than she is, so she can be quite bossy. She'll do things like not let Omar enter her room, even though she enters Omar's room without even asking. Exactly. And she knows 28 surahs of the Quran by heart. That's chapters of the Quran, and she's memorized that by heart. And she was once caught. This bit's always funny, because hands up if you don't know what a fondant fancy is. Okay, most people here know. Sometimes I do it, and then people don't know what fondant fancies are, and I'm really surprised, because I love fondant fancies. But yeah, she was once caught hiding a stash of them under her pillow, probably because she wanted to eat them all and not let Omar share any. But if you've read the books, you'll know that even though Omar and Maryam have that thing where sometimes they don't get along and they annoy each other, they have that thing where when there's trouble or when it push comes to shove, Mariam is always there for Omar, and the other way around as well. This is Omar's baby brother Isa, and he's a little one. So hands up if you've got a little sibling, like a 2-3-year-old, like this height, and maybe a cousin or something. Yeah. So that's Omar's brother Isa, and he's realised that when Isa eats, bits of food can always be found in his hair. Like, hardly any of it goes in his mouth. So when Isa eats, it will be, the spaghetti hoops will be across the room, they'll be in his hair, they will be in his nappy. We don't know why this happens, but every time Mummy and Daddy change the nappy, there's always spaghetti hoops down there. So, and that's not even the biggest problem. Omar says that when his brother cries, it can be louder than an ambulance siren. And that's pretty loud, isn't it? I think some of us have forgotten how loud it is, so we're going to do it. We're going to make a lot of noise now. Are you ready? Are you ready to scream and cry? Actually, don't cry. Nobody can just cry when they're asked to just cry on the spot. Can they? Unless they're an actor, like a really good actor, like Brad Pitt. Or like somebody your age who I can't think of. So don't cry, because I don't want people to say, we went to Zanib Mian's event and she made the children cry. We can scream, but before we do that, what we're going to do is, I need to tell you the signal for when you stop screaming. That's very important. So you need to keep your eyes on me, okay, when we're screaming. And the second I go like this, like the split second, not even the second, the split second, this is the signal, like that, the screaming has to stop within like a split second, okay? Now I've done this lots of times because I do lots of events and I do lots of schools as well. I've done it with like 10 times the size of this as well, and they stop really, really fast. But I want to see if you can beat their time of stopping by stopping even faster than them. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So we're going to scream, just to clarify, we're going to scream louder than an ambulance siren, and when I go like this, the screaming is going to stop, yeah? Okay. 1, 2, 3, scream! Great! That was really, really quick. Well done. And that was really loud. So do you see what Omar has to put up with? Imagine hearing that all the time. How painful for the ears. So that was good stopping time. Well done. And that was a good practice because I might get you to do that again later on in a little bit. Oh, yeah, in that bit. But okay, I'll stop here for a second just to make sure I've told you everything that I needed to tell you. Yes, what I didn't tell you is that the best bit of doing these events is you guys. And that, what I mean by that is at the end, I always leave 10 minutes for a Q&A session, a question and answer session. So as I've been speaking, if you've thought of a question that you want to ask me, or if you had a question in your mind before you even came here that you wanted to ask me, that's going to be the time that you ask me, and hopefully we'll try and cover as many as we can. And I love that bit. It's better than me speaking, because when I'm speaking, I'm just telling you the things that I think you want to know about. You know, you want to know about the characters, the books. But yeah, when you get to ask questions, then it's exactly what you want to know. So I'm just going to go back to the slide with all the books, because I've noticed that I forgot to put that slide in again, and tell you a little bit about each of the Planet Omar books. So in the first Planet Omar book, which is the orange one, it's called Accidental Trouble Magnet. That's where the whole series, the Planet Omar series, began. And it began by Omar and his family moving home. Hands up if you've ever had to move home. Okay, some of us, yeah. And move school at the same time. Hands up if you've ever moved schools. Yeah. So it's a lot. When you move home, when you move schools, you've gone through a lot. You're adjusting to a new thing. You're trying to make new friends. You have all these worries. And so Omar moves home and he moves schools and he's thrown into this new life. And that book is about him trying to make friends at school. He has a class bully that troubles him and that he ends up getting lost on the London Underground with. And there's a zombie chase as well, which might be in Omar's imagination, it might not. And they have a horrible, horrible next-door neighbor that I'll leave you to find out how they, I mean, many of you already know how the family sort of tackle that. And then you have the red ones. I'll go in order of the how they're published. The yellow one, which looks a bit green there, is called Planet Omar Unexpected Super Spy. And that's a whodunit mystery. I love whodunit mysteries, when you have to kind of figure out who did it, like who did the thing that's happened. And the thing that happens in that book, the yellow one, is that Omar and his friends have been trying to raise money to donate to the mosque so that it doesn't have to shut down if they don't get enough money to fix the roof. But just when they think of really funny ways to make money for the mosque, and just when they've made a fair bit of money that they want to donate, the money goes missing. So that book's a whodunit mystery about Omar and his friends become super spies, and they're trying to find out who took the money. And if you've read it, you know that it's really funny. It's not going to be who you thought. But it's not supposed to be. That would be boring, right? And then is the third book, Incredible Rescue Mission, which is green. In Incredible Rescue Mission, Omar's teacher, Mrs. Hutchinson, who he loves, she's the most brilliant teacher, she goes missing. And Omar and his friends are wondering where she's gone off to. The school is being quite secretive, and Omar and his friends are convinced, because of Omar's huge imagination, that she's been abducted by aliens. And they launch a rescue mission to try and find her. And Omar also visits Pakistan, the country where his parents are originally from, for the first time. And so you get to see Pakistan through Omar's eyes. And I did that by remembering how I saw Pakistan when I went as a child. I haven't been for over 10 years now, but I wrote that remembering how I saw Pakistan when I was a child, when we used to go. And then there's the red one, Epic Hero Flop. In Epic Hero Flop, poor Omar gets blamed for something that he didn't do. Hands up if that's ever happened to you, even if it's something small. Yeah, it happens, doesn't it? Sometimes we get blamed for things we didn't do, and hopefully it's usually just like a small thing, and we can just talk to people about it. But this is actually a big thing that Omar gets blamed for. And the poor thing, it happens to him because he had been a hero, an accidental hero, by taking the blame for a couple of smaller things that kids did in the class. So he took the blame for them because he didn't want them to get into trouble. And yeah, then when something bigger happens, everyone thinks it's Omar because all the clues point to him. And then there's Epic Ultimate Rocket Blast, which is the newest book. It's turquoise. You might not have read that one yet. And in that book, Omar and his friends enter a national rocket building competition. The stakes are really high because the prize is absolutely awesome. It's something Omar and his friends have always wanted. And they have to go, they're competing against schools from across the UK, and they have to build this rocket. And the people who they're competing against are really, really difficult. They meet all these new people, and some sort of suspicious sort of acting people, some mean people. And they realize that somebody has been messing around with the rockets so that nobody wins. And they have to uncover that, exactly. So I won't give you any more. Yeah, spoilers. That's actually not, because when I say that bit, I feel like that's a spoiler, but I've noticed that it's not because they've written it on the back. But yeah. I wanted to call up 4 volunteers now so that we can do a lovely little interactive activity that around the book, around the rocket blast concept, okay? Around kind of what happens with Omar. Oh, it's so hard to choose because there's many hands up. I think Aaron must have mentioned about the... Yeah.
4 volunteers that do come up, and afterwards, if the parents or guardians could see Sam at the back, just to sign a little form. So if you are chosen, afterwards, if the parents or guardians see Sam after, fantastic. I'll hand you back over to choose the volunteers.
Thank you. I kind of want you to choose them because it's so hard for me to choose.
I'll help you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hands up. Okay, this one's really high. Come up, sir. What's your name? Give Mikhail a big cheer, everyone.
Thank you, Mikhail.
And this chap here, what's your name? Give Maliki a big cheer, everybody. And then we'll come up a bit high. Don't leave anyone out right at the back. And what's your name? Aditi, give Aditi a big cheer. Okay, and then another one. Who we go over here? Oh, it's so hard to choose. What's your name? Give Maya a big cheer as well, everybody.
Oh,
very good, very good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. So I've had 4 lovely volunteers. Thank you so much. And we're going to just have a look at what it says on the board. It says, the town of Beardsville is having a rocket building competition, just like in Omar's book. It's Beardsville. Does that mean everybody has beards? Have you all got beards? The stakes are very high. They're having like in Omar's book, the stakes are very high because the prize for the winner is something people would do almost anything to get. So people of the competition, what is the prize? What would you do almost anything to get? You. Yeah.
PS4.
A PS5. Gosh, aim higher, man. Aim higher. Okay, a PS5 is the prize. Okay? Or in your head, you can just imagine it as something that you've always wanted, that you would do anything to get. That is the prize. It might be different for each of you. It might be a lifetime supply of chocolate. I can tell you, like, chocolate. Okay, so now that we've established what the prize is, we're going to meet the people in the competition. Okay? So, what's your name?
Aditi.
Aditi and?
Maliki.
Maliki. Okay, so Aditi and Maliki are entering the competition together. They've chosen to team up together. Is that okay? Aditi and Maliki. And then there is another person called Marcel. Marcel, do you mind wearing the things that Marcel usually wears? Okay, just so you can look like Marcel. He wears a tie. And he wears this funny hat. I don't know what that's about, but Marcel likes to wear that. So there you go. And there's a lady called Nadia. Do you mind do you mind looking a bit like Nadia? Okay. Nadia's an old lady. And she wears this. Do you mind? Do you mind? Is that okay? Okay, it kind of might. Do you want to pull it? I don't want to pull your hair, that's why. Do your best, otherwise you'll just have to hold it, I guess. Okay, so now, these are your rockets. You're in the middle of making them. That's where they don't, if it opens. So, if I just tell you a little bit about rockets, the main concept in a rocket is that, wait, I need to give the right balloons to the right people here. Okay, so Nadia, yours is this one. Yours is this one, Marcel, and yours is this one. Okay. Yeah, so you've seen how a rocket works, right? It kind of shoots up. And when it shoots up, what do you see at the bottom shooting out the other way in real rockets that you see on TV? Yeah, you see some sort of a fire or gases kind of thing, yeah? So that's a big force that's being produced, and it's pushing downwards. And in science, when a force is pushing downwards, it's going to be an equal force in the other direction. So it's going to be upwards, and that's why the rocket goes upwards. With a balloon, don't blow it up yet, but with a balloon, a similar concept can happen because you blow lots of air into the balloon, don't you, when you blow it up? And then it's in there, and when it escapes really fast out of the balloon, it sends the balloon flying, doesn't it? Because the balloon has to go in the opposite direction to the air, which is like, so there's different forces acting in opposite directions. You guys know that because you're building great rockets, aren't you? Okay, so, right, get on with your competition. So you two are not working together, so you can have a bit of space. Yeah, and you two are working together. Right, so now they're making their awesome rockets. And then Nadia says to these two, Aditi and Maliki, right? Yeah, so Nadia says, Nadia, what do you say to them? This is Nadia's advice to Aditi and Maliki. She says, destroy the competition or you'll never win. So she's telling you to basically destroy their rockets. It probably, obviously hers as well, but also poor Marcel's. Now, we're going to ask the audience if you should listen to that advice. So it's not the pressure's not only on you to make that decision. So guys, remember when we did the screaming before? Yeah. You're going to scream again, but this time to vote, okay? So basically, if you're voting for no, you're not going to scream. If you're voting for... Actually, maybe I should do it the other way around, because I know you guys like screaming. Okay. if you say, all right, so if you think they shouldn't listen to Nadia's advice, so they shouldn't destroy the rocket competition, you're going to scream. And if you think that they should destroy the other people's rockets, you're going to stay quiet, okay? So ready to vote? And make sure you look for the sign to stop, yeah? Okay? I really hope you guys make the right decision. Okay. 1, 2, scream. Well done, good stopping, good stopping. Well done, good decision as well, I think. I think that's a good decision. So you guys, do you agree with that? You shouldn't destroy the competition. Good guys, good people. So they're not going to listen to that advice. Sorry, Nadia. Marcel's also giving some advice. Marcel, what is your advice?
Dump your friend. You can do better without them.
Oh no! They want you. He wants you to dump each other and do better. He thinks you can make the rocket like much better without each other. So we're going to ask our audience again to help you decide. So audience, again, same thing. If you think they should ditch each other because they can make the rocket better by themselves, scream. If you think that they shouldn't ditch each other, so they shouldn't listen to Marcel, then stay quiet. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. That was a bit... Some of you thought, yeah, but I think most of you voted for don't ditch each other. So very good, so very good. Okay, so they've decided not to ditch each other. Okay, carry on making your rockets. Carry on making your rockets, and soon it's going to be time. Oh, it's time now. We're going to see whose rocket is the best. So now you're going to, who's got the most powerful lungs? Okay, yeah. So now you're going to blow up your rockets, and then you're going to let them go. Yeah, keep going. Can you see what's happening? What is happening here?
You can't blow it up.
Bit of what's happening?
They're not closing it properly.
No.
Someone's got a hole in it. Sabotage.
Sabotage. Yes. Nadia, you can let your rocket go because yours is the only one that worked. Sorry, Maliki, you can stop, you poor thing. Oh, that actually was quite good. You can, yeah, just hold on to that for now. Thank you. So what was happening there was it seemed like Nadia's was the absolute best rocket. There was no problem whatsoever with that. But there was a bit of an issue with these two rockets, wasn't there? It just wasn't getting blown up properly. It wasn't their technique. It wasn't their technique. They were doing it right. It wasn't getting blown up properly. So, I'll take one guess from the audience because there are hands up. Yeah, what do you think might have happened? There was a hole in the balloon, but who did that? Let's find out. It's so obvious. Nadia has been sabotaging the other rockets. But guess what? It hasn't worked out very well for her because she has been caught on CCTV. Sorry, you have to play the bad guy. She's been caught on CCTV, so she doesn't get the PS5 or the other prize. And it gets shared. How do you share a PS5? Do you break it into bits? Yeah. Yeah, cut it in half. And it gets shared amongst the others. Or maybe they just get the money that it was worth and they share that amongst the others. So, thank you. Let's give a round of applause to my lovely volunteers. You can put all your props and things back down here. Thank you. You guys were so great. Nadia, especially you, because you had to play the bad guy. That's not always easy. Thank you, Marcel. So, yeah. That was just to demonstrate a little bit to you about what is kind of going on in Ultimate Rocket Blast. But it's different in the book, so it's not a complete giveaway, but just to get those sort of emotions going, that when you're challenged with things, with those difficult decisions, how you're going to tackle it, you know, when there's something that you really, really want at the other end. And that's what Omar was going through in this book. And I'm quite proud of Omar, because he always gets through the other side really, really nicely. By the way, Charlie and Daniel, these three, I feel like they're my children. I'm so proud of them. I know them so well. Yeah, they're great kids, all three of them. I hope you enjoy reading them, and I hope you enjoyed the event. But it's not over yet, because I'm going to take some questions, and then afterwards, I'm going to sign books outside. Yeah, so, yeah, you can go around. Yeah,
Okay,
so if you have a question,
Everybody,
Yeah.
it's time for some questions now. So I'm going to start off with the first question, which will give you some inspiration to think of your own. If you do have a question, please pop your hands in the air and I'll come over with the microphone. And then after we've had a wonderful question and answer session, we're going to be over into one of the hatch spaces where we can sign some books as well, okay? And then after that, I'll tell you a little bit about some evaluation things. So the first question I've got right here is, what's your favourite place to get inspiration for your stories?
Oh, thank you. Supermarket, like I told you. No. My favourite place is people like you, seeing people like you. Kids are my inspiration because obviously the book is for kids. So, and I love kids. So whenever there are kids around more than adults, you know, I like observing what they're doing. And I have two wonderful nieces and two nephews, and I've raised two boys of my own as well. And a lot of the inspiration comes from them. But also just from, like I said, okay, supermarket is running joke here now, but yesterday I was in Tesco and I overheard, you know, just little things like a kid saying something, it was obviously about a food, or it looks really good but it tastes disgusting. And you know, I hear those kinds of things and it will inspire me, and sometimes it might even inspire a whole story, you know. So inspiration comes from different places, but you just have to be open and just always aware of your environment and just being really, really present wherever you are. And a lot, yeah, it just comes to you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, you're going to say your name and then your question.
My name is Khadija, and my question is, where do you get all your not where, but how do you get all your inspiration?
Where do the ideas come from?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the ideas come from different places, from different people that I meet, from things that happen to me. You might know from my books that, you know, they're about real life, so it's about things that are happening in real life that happen to me, that have happened to me, or happen to other people that I know, that kind of stuff. I take stuff from real life events for my inspiration.
Wonderful,
as
thank you.
You've heard even with the characters, yeah.
Yeah, next question.
My name is also Zainab, and my question is, when and how did you get your inspiration for your first book?
Thank you, cool name, bro. When and how? Okay, so my first book was called Adam and the Tummy Monsters. I wrote it in 2007 and I published it in 2009. And actually, you're going to be the first to know that it's making a comeback now because it's been out of print for a long time, but it's a story that my nieces and nephews have always enjoyed, so I'm bringing it back. Yeah, so the inspiration for that one was from my kids learning the sort of etiquettes of eating and like learning the sort of rules of good food, bad food, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's another everyday life kind of thing. I should say the inspiration for Planet Omar actually came from my own son, who was 9 years old at the time. And Omar's character is very heavily based on my son. He's a bit older now, because I started writing the series about 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, he was the inspiration because I wanted people to sort of read a character like his, and a child with such a warm heart, but who's also really, really entertaining. Yeah.
And Mark, I've got a quick question to add on to that. And how does your son feel about the book being based on him?
Yeah, he loves it. He's so used to it now, though. But yeah, he absolutely loves it.
Good, good. Okay, we've got a grown-up question now.
Yeah.
Just about grown up. You were mentioning about, you know, wanting to write books so you can kind of almost see yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think needs to be, I guess, improved in the publishing industry still? Because obviously changes are being made, but I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's, you can see organically that the change has been made. So if you look at publishing lists from 5 years ago and you compare them to now, you can see that there's a change, and there's so many more books now featuring all kinds of people. But if you look at reports, so actual studies and reports, like the one done by, you can search for it, the one done by the CLPE, they show that there's still quite a lack of books, because even though there are many more than before, they still don't represent how many, you know, children are in schools from diverse backgrounds. So there's still work to be done, but it's really, really good news that publishers are aware and trying their best to get these stories, to get these voices heard.
Lovely, great, okay.
Is Omar and Amr from Little Bandman are going to team up?
Oh.
That would be a great one.
I'll have a a chat with Hamza if that's what you want. But yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Maybe we can do something. We'll see.
Okay.
I want to become an author when I grow up, so can you give me some tips?
Oh,
Great question.
of course I can. Okay, this is my biggest writing tip that I give to everybody. All right? Let yourself get bored. Let yourself be bored. I've been saying this like at every event that I've been doing for centuries. So I'm not that old. Yes, I am. I'm a vampire. No. Okay. Yeah. So basically, let yourself get bored, and I say that because we are constantly, especially these days, we're constantly absorbing something. You know, whether we're listening to something or we're watching something, we're flicking through our phones, we're watching TV. Something's always going in. Like, it's so busy, our minds are so busy, there's something always going in. You know, we can't even sit for 5 seconds without pulling our phones out. And it's not going to be until you're bored and your mind is quiet, you know, and that you're just having one of those days where there's nothing to do. It's not going to be until that happens that the ideas, whatever you've been taking in, is somehow going to make a little mixture and also come out. Yeah? So you need to have those days where you're literally just sitting under a tree, staring up at the clouds, or going for a walk, or something like that. But you're not doing video gaming, you're not listening to something, you're not watching TV. So you're just giving your mind the time to let something come out for once. Be still for a while.
Great answer. Okay, I think we've got 2 questions here.
My name's Yusha Khan, and my question is, how do you write your books?
How do I write them? Okay. Do you mean how do I make them up, or how do I actually put them into writing?
No, yeah.
Yeah, how I make up.
How do you get the ideas onto the paper? Yeah.
So once I have an idea for something, I actually don't even go to I type on a laptop. I don't even go to the laptop for days after I've had my idea. What I do during those few days, and this is also a very handy tip, is I just visualize the story that I've thought of. So I might have just thought of the main idea, but then I have to figure out how did they get to that main idea, the main characters, and how did they get from that main idea to the end. And I won't even bother to sort of sit down and try and write it, or even in my notebook. I like to use a notebook. But for a few days, I'll just let it simmer in my brain. And then I might go to my notebook to figure out a few more things. And then again, I'll let it simmer in my brain. So I won't actually start writing until I've really visualized the whole story like a movie in my head. And that's why when I write, it comes out really easily, because I already know.
And following on to that one, how long does it take to write a story like Planet Omar?
Yeah, for Planet Omar, every author's different, because sometimes I do these panel events and then people ask this question and I give my answer and then everyone's like, I hate you. Because I'm quite quick, but it's because, so I take about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks to write, and that's maybe a writing for 1.5 hours in the day. First thing in the morning, I'm a morning person. But then that is also because, like I just told you, the rest of the day, it will still be simmering in my head. So if I've written a chapter, even though I'm not writing for the rest of the day, I'm thinking, whether I'm driving, washing the dishes, whatever other task I'm doing, I'm thinking, oh, and then how are they going to do that? And how is that going to happen? So I'm figuring it out. So that's why it's a lot quicker. But so for me, yeah, it takes about 8 weeks.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we've probably got about time for 3 more questions. So I'm sorry if we don't come to you. We've got time for about 3 more, okay?
My name is Haroon, and my question is, how do you make your books?
Oh, how do they get turned into the actual book after I've written them? Is that the question? Okay, yeah. So my publisher, Hachette, they take care of everything. So I write out the story and I give it to them. And then they will come back and do some a round of edits or something. And then it takes a whole year, normally, from the time that I've actually written the story till you get it. And that's because there's a lot that goes on. They have to get the illustrations done by the brilliant artists. Can you see the most wonderful illustrations? That takes time. So the illustrations are done by Mian for the later books, and the first few were done by Nasaya Mafaridic. And they just brighten up every page. There's so much going on in there with illustrations and doodles, so that takes time. You know, so it's not just what I do on my end. And then they set the pages with all the words, and they send it to the printers, sorry. So yeah, a lot goes on until you can actually hold it, and it's a full book.
Okay, so I'm going to go for a question over here. What's your question?
How hard is it to write your books?
How hard is it?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because, like I told you, I've been doing it for about 10 years at least, maybe a bit more. And in the beginning, I found it quite hard. But I just kept trying and trying. And then in the beginning, I was a science teacher and I was writing at the same time. So but I decided that I'm so passionate about this, and even though I don't know that I'm going to earn enough money from it to live, I am going to just focus fully on the writing, and I did that. And it was so hard, and people were saying to me, go back to being a teacher. You can't be a writer. But I didn't listen, because I felt so passionately about it. I felt so strongly about writing the books that I just kept on. And I think maybe the struggle wasn't even in the writing, maybe it was in the other things, like getting it in the on the bookshelves in the shops and things like that. So some of it was hard, and some of it, why I got through something that was hard is because I loved it so much, and I didn't want to stop trying to do something that I love so much and that I feel so passionately about. And I'm glad I didn't stop, because now it's just taken off. Well, yeah, it's just taken off like in such a brilliant way.
Okay,
so
so we're going to do
all of you for that.
2 more, and then we are going to do a book signing. Okay, so here we go.
How do you get your titles?
Oh, the titles. Oh, that's an interesting question. Because, you know, when I was at school, and most of you will do this, when you're asked to write a story, the first thing you do is try and think of the title. And you try and write the title down, and you can't go anywhere before you've written that title down. I used to be like that, but guess what? I will write a whole story without knowing the title. Sometimes, most times, I will give it to my publishers without a title, because I will say, you make it up. All the titles, the Planet Omar titles, I didn't make them up. Do you know that? Yes. Little secret. So then they send me some ideas. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And I might put in a word or so, or I might choose from a few that they've selected. But I don't always worry about making them up, because I know that's not my strong point, making up titles.
Wow.
I stick to what I do best.
That's good, that's good. And then our final question, thank you.
What is her favourite book to read?
Oh, what's your favourite book to read, and
My
your favourite
favourite
author
book?
as well? Yeah.
Oh. As an adult, well, it's a little bit of a kid's book as well, actually. I really like the book The Hobbit. Yeah. I just really like it. I really love Gollum, and I like that whole fantasy. Even though I don't write fantasy, but I really liked The Hobbit. When I was your age, though, my favourite book was Chicken Licken. And I actually found, we're having a loft conversion, guys, and in the loft, guess what I found? My Chicken Licken that I had from like your age. It was there. We had kept it. It was my absolute favourite.
There we go. Very good.
Thank you.
Can everyone give a big round of applause, everybody? A big thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.